Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. So today we'll start this session on getting started with Cisco Secure App, also called CSA for short. So I'm Senthil. I'm a security SME for full stack observability platform. In addition to security experience and expertise, I have knowledge and experience in application, product, cloud architectures. Prior to which, I was a hands-on developer. So hopefully, I'll be in a better position to answer questions from all kinds of audience, which I believe, which includes today developers, IT ops folks, architects, and security folks, right? All right, so I would like you to kind of type the questions as and when they occur to you, and that way, you don't forget that as the slides proceed. And I would like to get to it at the end, and I'll make sure that we have enough time for that. Okay. All right. So today, as we talked about, we'll first get introduced to Cisco Secure Application. We'll understand what business risk observability is. Yeah, CSA is part of full stack observability platform. So this app provides an insight into the business risk, right? So that's why we'll look into what is business risk observability. And we'll also look at the reporting and integration features that the CSA has. So that's kind of broadly what we'll look at. All right, let's get started with CSA. Now, it's a security tool, right? And we know security is a growing concern, even without the slides I'm going to share with you. But I just wanted to kind of share some numbers, right? Now, so next year, the projected global impact because of cybercrime, it's over 10.5 trillion, right? We already know this. This is a huge number, right? 10.5 trillion. But again, sometimes, to put some numbers in context, I like to kind of relate them to something else, which I better understand, right? So one such example here I would think is, the S&P 500 index, which is at its all-time highest, right? So the market cap of all these 500 top companies, right, put together is only about $40 trillion, right? So now that kind of goes to show, right? This is a very significant amount which goes into the cyber crime related issues and money lost because of that, which could have otherwise been used in more productive and beneficial investment. So anyway, so this is to make the point that this number is very significant. 25% of the all-time highest S&P 500 indexes market cap. All right. So now, when we look at that, we say, what? Some of you may say, what? We have a pretty good security team. We invest a lot of money. But it turns out this number, 33%, only 33% of the breaches are identified by the security teams and using the tools, right, within organizations, right? So now, so that number, right, the 33%, I would think, could be higher, right? So now I don't know how that could be higher. Perhaps better security tools will help push this number higher, right? Help the security teams, and perhaps even, right, leveraging not just security teams. What if everybody who believes business security is everybody's business also has a way to act on security issues, right? What if a tool can surface security issues to everybody, IT ops people, SREs, and so forth as well, not without they having to look at something else, some other tool, right? It gets surfaced in what they are already looking at. Now, perhaps then this number, 33%, could be better, a better, bigger number, right? So with that number, we already saw the business impact is pretty significant. And I'm just saying the average here, right? The average cost of a data breach is, I would say, almost 10 million, right? And then a significant portion of that is because of lost business, right? And again, the averages are really averages, and in some of these large corporations, so this number it's in a couple of hundreds of millions. Okay, so I'm talking 300, 400 millions, right? And anyway, so the impact could be very significant. And what is worse, right? You may think, everything is nice and dandy, right? And then say, what, hey, we don't have any security issues. But you know what? It may have been more than 200 days since there was a breach, and it's just that you don't know about it, right? And all this time, the data is getting exfiltrated, right? So that's an average, right? Now, what could we do about this? If there is a way to more quickly identify vulnerabilities and be more proactive in fixing them, perhaps then, right, you would even avoid issues. Well, at the minimum, if they do happen, right, you are in a better position to identify those sooner, right? What if there is a tool like that, right? Now, another part here is 82% of breaches is with data stored in the cloud. That's a huge number, right? And some of you may say, hey, that may simply be attributed because of the fact lots of things are on the cloud. Good, fair enough, right? But still, this number is huge, right? These are talking about breaches, right? So something which we need to take care of, and that is significant business impact. Now, do things get better, right? Yeah, they're bad from what we saw, right? But it doesn't look like they're going to get better anytime soon. As a matter of fact, it looks like it's a worsening trend, right? This is just data from 2022. It's 1802 breaches. And then here, it's a much bigger number. And what is that? It's 78% more than 2022 number, just 1 year, right? And again, I've been in security long enough, and I've not seen it go the other way, not by a significant margin anyways, right? Now, again, we're all excited about AI, generative AI, LLMs and whatnot. And we all know, a lot of us make use of that to be productive, right? And what do attackers potentially do or could do? Um, they could use these tools too, right? So, and what is that going to do to this trend, right? Anyway, so the point here is, right, we're essentially saying the stakes are high for security, business impact is significant, and the trend is bad, and I see it only worsening. All right. All right. So with that said, right, I know I'm already preaching to the choir in the sense that you are folks who registered for a security application tool webinar, right? So anyway, so I'll stop it at that. So now we know there is a security issue and we care about it, right? Now, so what, right? If that is a way to quickly take advantage of a tool, then it only makes us become productive sooner, secure our systems sooner, right? So let's talk about, even without talking about what CSA is, right? I'm guessing some of you would just care only if, hey, you know what, tell me if it's easy, then I'll listen, right? Here we go. All right. So now there are lots of stuff here. I'm just going to focus on a couple of things here. So now, yes, like there is always with any software, there are some prerequisites, right? You need this controller to be a particular version, in this case 22.8, but where are we right now? It's the more recent one is 24.1 or perhaps even 24.2. So I would say, being on SaaS, you wouldn't worry about this, right? This condition is met, right? And these Java APM agent related versions, .NET. So again, as you can see, if you kind of have agents which are about a year or less old, you're good, right? You don't have anything special. And here it says Google Chrome. Yeah, I guess most of us do have Google Chrome. All right. So anyway, so those are the prerequisites. Again, this is nothing surprising, and they are simple too. And as I mentioned, most of you would be meeting this without having to do something to meet these requirements, right? All right. So now the other CSA requirements, right? Yes, you need a separate CSA license. Well, again, when I say separate CSA license, some of your packaged licenses, may already have CSA license. if I understand this right, most of you here are folks who already have a CSA license as part of any package license that you may have gotten. So it's a matter of just putting it to use to secure your systems and your business, right? So most of you would have this. For those of you who do not, please talk to our account team. They would be happy to help you with the CSA license. So you got to have a license like anything, right? The next step is pretty easy. So you're all AppDynamics folks. So you know how to assign permissions to different roles. Yeah, so you just have to assign some CSA specific permissions to some users. That's it. This is as easy as this because you're already AppDynamics folks. You would just use the same interface and assign one or two permissions. That's it, right? Which are CSA related. And then what do? You got to go to see this window here, a screenshot just showing partially some setting screen, and you just click on this enable security. That's it. Well, as you see here, it's off by default, right? That's one reason why you're probably not using it despite having the CSA license. But it's just a couple of clicks and then a checkbox. So now you see, especially for those of you who have the license, which I'm guessing the majority of you in this call. So the steps to get going is pretty much nothing, right? So now basically we said security is important, right? And then we said, hey, getting going with CSA as in enabling it is basically a no-brainer. It's just a couple of clicks and steps. That's it, right? No special additional knowledge needed, right? So which means I'm hoping you guys are kind of saying, okay, I got this now, tell me more about CSA, right? Right. But again, before that, we'll just say the CSA is relevant, okay, only for some agents, not all the agents, right? But in enterprises, however, I think, majority of them are going to be Java, .NET, and Node.js, right? So now, so if you have any of these four runtimes, so then CSA would help you identify vulnerabilities in your libraries. Okay. If you are using Java application and Java agent thereby, so you will also get attack detection and runtime protection, which is typically part of a category of security tools called RASP, runtime application self-protection. So you see, self-protection is the key, right? It helps you, the applications protect themselves, right? So that's it. All right, so with that, so again, this is not really an introduction to application security, but again, in the context of CSA, I just wanted to mention a couple of things because I realized that a couple of folks may not be as experienced in security, so it's well worthwhile to just talk about it in just one slide, okay? All right, so the first thing, okay, I will dive deep into like the Cisco solution, what it does in the application security area. It helps identify vulnerabilities and threats in your production application. The way I would qualify that is basically in your running application. This is basically a tool for runtime. So which essentially means, right, even if you have it in staging, yes, you can use it there too. Yes, if you have a test environment, you can use it there too, right? So just wanted to just make it clear that's just runtime related. Right, and as we talked about in the last slide, we said, hey, it is going to prevent real-time attacks. Okay, it can just detect too if that's all you want, right? But if you want it to detect and protect, right, it can do that too. So now this is the key. See, there could be other RASP products out there, but what is the key differentiator of this product? It actually helps put the business impact and the business context in place, okay, with your security risk so that you are in a better position to prioritize. So this is a key differentiator. And as you can imagine, you get this benefit because it's part of AppDynamics, right? That's why. All right. And it helps different folks and personas, if you would. People who are familiar with AppDynamics know that we do talk about personas and their functions, and it helps different personas collaborate efficiently and make the entire system and business more secure. Okay, so that's application security, and I'm going to quickly give some context about where this security solution of the full stack observability platform sits. So this is your familiar APM space. Some of you may be aware of this relatively newer optimization space. And I just wanted to kind of mention that this tool is in the security space for FSO platform. Okay. All right. So now, as you all know, full stack observability provides end-to-end visibility. Now, you can think of it as drilling it in from the network, diving into an application, and in an application, kind of diving into a class, a method, and a line of code, right, in order to observe what's happening, right, and surface issues, be in a better position to troubleshoot. Now, where do we go from there? From the application context, you can drill into the security of the application. And not just the application, as you all know in AppDynamics, the application or the managed application can be further broken down into tiers, right? And which in turn is made up of nodes. So you can drill into, the tiers, nodes, and even more, right? uh, just from the application standpoint, without the AppDynamics notion of managed application, tiers, and nodes, we can as well talk about application, library, the line of code, and then drill into the security in that space as well, right? Just giving this context of where does the CSA fit in the full stack observability platform. Now, I'm going to have a quick overview of Cisco Secure App architecture. And again, this is a getting started session. So I'm just going to touch upon things which are required to get started. That's it. First part, right? The Cisco Secure Agent is already part of or bundled with the APM agent. So you don't need another agent, right? So this should help you get going right away because you don't have to install a new agent. And I know, folks hate more agents. Though there's a light at the end of the tunnel with a new feature, smart agent, right? But anyway, so you don't even need that right now because CSA is part of your APM, right? Now, in terms of the backend, right, you're all familiar with the controller. Okay, we call the controller UI the controller as well sometimes, but there is a controller backend. All that you got to know is that is a CSA service. Okay, from the standpoint of view and the CSA agent or the APM agent, one and the same, right? Is just a backend, so you don't have to know about it in order to use it or benefit from it, right? And then you will just see a conspicuous, nice Cisco Secure Application Dashboard. Well, why is it conspicuous? Because, it's security, right? Otherwise, it's nicely blends in with the look and feel of the rest of the dashboards, right? And the service does talk to a lot of backend feeds and databases to bring you the security functionality, right? So again, my goal was not to dive into the architecture here. It was just to provide a overview. Okay. All right. And on this slide, we just say the Cisco Secure App touches everything, including your API, your libraries, your code. Again, we'll look at in the demo a lot more of how it helps. So I'm going to jump through this. And let me just stop for a second here. Though I said I'm going to take questions at the end. But if there are issues like audio, speed, or whatnot, you can just let me know now so I can make some corrective actions. Okay. So I guess things are okay. I'm guessing Melissa would have chipped in if there had been any issues. So I'm going to get going now. So broadly, CSA takes care of three use cases. So one is that of detecting the vulnerabilities. The next one is that of detecting attacks. And then the last one, obviously, is if you so wish, block the detected attacks. All right. So now I'll just give you a high level here. So you may already know about software composition analysis, which your company may have, which is meant for detecting the libraries that are being used in your application, right? And then putting you in a best position to take corrective action. So now this is kind of providing that functionality, but only in the runtime, right? And there are special benefits to doing it. This is not to mean that you need to throw your software composition analysis tool. No, but there are special benefits because of this. And detecting attacks, why would you not just block it right away? The reason is this, right? You want to kind of steady them, right? To be in a position to come up with a policy, right? And say, hey, you know what? I'm noticing all this. Like looks like this is happening often. Let me come up with this pattern to catch this kind of issues and block it. The detecting part is typically a part of functionality of a class of security tools called IAST, Interactive Application Security Testing Tool category, right? And this blocking is part of what is called the runtime application self-protection security tools. So basically, as you can see here, this one tool, right? It looks like it's providing some CSA functionality, software composition analysis functionality, IAST functionality, and RASP functionality. Well, 3-in-1, right? 3-in-1 is good. All right, so when there is a tool, yes, you can go look in the dashboard, but if there is a way to kind of push that information out to a different dashboard, which is central, perhaps, there may be some of you who say, what, we use Splunk, that is what we look at. Our security teams use Splunk. Well, great, right? Splunk is soon going to be part of Cisco, right? The key part here is, yes, the events that are generated from within CSA can as well be pushed out to Splunk if that's what you want. And then you say, no, we have some other tool. Well, you can still do so, right? Here are the steps, and if time permits, we'll definitely look at that in the demo, given that this is a getting started. All right. So now I'm just going to share with you the team personas that are relevant to CSA. So first is an IT ops person. I'm guessing some of you are from that space in this call, and the SecOps person and the AppSec. Now, so historically speaking, the IT ops function, folks look at, user experience and availability, and I'm sure that they want to do something about security if they are aware. So if there's a tool which somehow makes the IT ops folks also know about some security issues, they're going to just go tell either SecOps Zane or AppSec Aurora, hey, here is what I saw on my dashboard, like good, right? The SecOps person typically is interested in getting to know about every security event. Well, that's a boon and a bane, right? Well, if you want everything, then you just get overloaded with the noise too. But again, what if you have fine-grained control to control what you want to hear, right? If a tool provides that, boom, you focus on what you need to focus on. And with AppSec, again, I've been on those shoes, so I understand what is a challenge in that role. Yes, you have a lot of security issues, but there is only so much time and so much resources and so much budget, right? So now it comes down to, hey, what is the most important thing? Okay, which poses the maximum risk? Okay, so I get the biggest bang for the buck from the standpoint of addressing an issue, right? What if a tool provides that insight into the risk, and not just any risk, not technical risk, business risk, right? Which is important for your bottom line, right? So these are the three personas which are relevant to CSA, right? All right, and the personas are good, but if they have to go to different dashboards, different screens, and different tools, then it may not be as productive, right? Just to share information too, right? So the solution which facilitates that, kind of one pane of glass to kind of get an insight into business risk for all personas involved, that's CSA. Okay. All right, so now we talked about CSA, we kind of introduced CSA, right? We started off with, hey, how important security is, and then we said, hey, it's easy to start using CSA, and then we kind of briefly looked at, application security and some features of CSA, right? Now, again, see, the key differentiator of full stack observability platform with this CSA app is to provide you business risk observability, right? Well, after all, CSA is part of a full stack observability platform and it provides you some business risk observability. So most tools which measure security risk start off with vulnerability management, right? And there is an industry standard for that, which is called the CVSS score. Again, this is a mature standard. We have CVSS 3.1. It evolved from 2.03 and all. And again, yes, it's an industry standard. 10 is critical, and you have the stable right there, right? And the key thing is it measures technical severity of an issue, right? Technical security doesn't automatically map to risk, right? You may have something which is technically really bad, severe, but from the probability wise, it may not be high. So the security folks on the call may know something, which is, there are two elements to arriving at risk. One is impact. Another thing is called likelihood, right? So you have low likelihood, low impact, then the risk is low. When you have high impact, high likelihood, the risk is high, right? So this system, the CVSS scoring system, it isn't something which gives you a sense of risk, right? So what does that mean? If that is a system that provides that and it can be used in your security tool, then that is going to help you in making the right decisions when it comes to security using your minimal time, resource, and budget. To that end, right, CSA integrates with not just one, three security suites which Cisco has. One is Cisco Talos and Cisco Kenna, and the Cisco Kenna recently is called Cisco Vulnerability Management, Cisco Panoptica, right? So now again, so these are security suites by themselves, full-fledged products, right? So CSA is able to leverage each of these tools by way of the backend integration CSA has with these three tools, right? For example, the Cisco Talos, CSA gets insight about threat. And Kenna, you get about vulnerability scores. And Panoptica mainly is used for API related security, right? Yes, CSA is one tool which is part of the FSO platform, but by way of its integration with uh, industry standard products, suites, security suites, it actually is able to give you a lot more in arriving at the business risk score, right? So again, I don't have the time in this session to go into details of all these three tools, and perhaps there will be a getting started and more section on CSA, a webinar, possibly the next month or so, or maybe 2 months from now. I would cover that in those sessions, more details on that. The point here is you are not just using CSA, you are getting the power of other tools, Cisco security tools, by virtue of using CSA, right? So here we're talking about Kenna. The previous slide is talking about the threat intelligence gathered by Talos. The Kenna basically gives you the vulnerability insight by way of coming up with a score. We said CVSS is 0 to 10, Kenna score is 0 to 100, and it uses state of the art AI, ML, and data science to basically arrive at this number. We also talked about Panoptica, which gives you API security related information. It actually helps you find out whether you're using a secure API in situations like, let's say you are exploring an API on your development environment, you rolled it to test. And as I already mentioned, CSA can work on any runtime. So even in your test, right? And it can help detect whether there are security issues with that API, which could put you in a better position to either to use that API or switch to another provider based on the security characteristics of that API. Okay. All right. So now we kind of said like CSA is integrating with 3 different Cisco security suites and providing the value to you. How does it provide that value? So we said it gives business risk score. How is it able to know about business, right? Purely by way of being part of AppDynamics, which has this notion of business transaction, which you're all familiar with and I hope love, right? That is where you get to understand like, hey, which is the most important business function for me, which I should care about, from a performance, availability, and now a security standpoint, right? So using the feed from Talos, Kena, and the runtime behavior, which is the RASP functionality, and the Panoptica's third-party API vulnerability detection, those numbers are put together, and then a business risk number is arrived at, right? So that is what is going to help you. Remember, we talked about AppSec person, and like as always in the security world, there is always a limit on the resources, a lot more constrained than other functionality, I would say. And then it's better to be in a position to focus on the items which gives you or minimizes the maximum risk. How about that, right? So now key points. I just wanted to call it out here, right? Yes, CSA is integrating with these 3 different suites, right? So does that mean that you have to pay for license for those 3 suites? No, not at all, right? So you just get CSA license. Folks here on this call, you already have a CSA license. You just benefit from CSA, and then CSA provides more value for what you have paid by virtue of its integration with these 3 different products, right? Leverage the strength of these 3 integrations under CSA. But that does not mean that you're paid for these 3 different products. So you can't basically kind of say, hey, no, I want to just install Talos here locally or Kena or Panoptica. No, they are full-fledged suites which have a lot more functionality than the functionality that CSA uses. Okay, just want to make it very clear there. All right. All right. So you have a tool, you have a dashboard, and then how do we gather the data, right? So one is of course the dashboard, right? And then you can look at various pages on the dashboard, and then you have a way to download, for example, the vulnerabilities listed per application, per tier, and even per node, right? You can just export it in your CSV format, JSON format, whatnot. That's what this is talking about. And from a reporting and integration standpoint, we have a vertical integration with Splunk. It's almost kind of a de facto standard SIEM software. And again, it's part of Cisco as well. So that is going to facilitate ease of kind of looking at one dashboard if you want, all the security folks, that can happen too. But we have integrations with any HTTP endpoint, right? Provide a way for you to just integrate with any HTTP endpoint and also pick and choose the data that you want to push out when a security event happens. So that is something which we provide too. So that is the integration from the standpoint of outgoing data from CSA. And this is how all you need is HTTP event collector, the Splunk endpoint, a token which is generated for Splunk, and boom, that's it. You're done with your integration with Splunk, right? Can't get easier than that, right? Okay, so with that, we are now at the demo. All right, so let me just go here. And so Melissa, could you please confirm that you're able to see this browser? Probably on mute. Unless somebody kind of screams, I can't hear anything, I'm going to proceed. Okay, all right. So I'm in one of the demo instances meant for such demos. And if security license is present and security is enabled, in addition to all these familiar tabs that you see for all the folks who are on the call, who are AppDynamics folks, you have a security tab. Okay. Now, before clicking into that, I'm actually going to go into say, one of the applications. And I'm going to click on say, this application. So, and then I'm going to click on business transaction. So this is just to show that this is a screen that you are most familiar with, right? And what you notice here, when security is enabled, you have another column called business risk, which I can obviously sort. And based on what I've talked about, that is this business risk score, I was able to sort this column. And here it has this business risk score, and then this can go up to 1,000. I'm getting in on that, and actually I can see which business transaction it is. And then, right next to it, I see the business risk score, how many criticals, high, medium. The point here is, remember we talked about, hey, you know what, you have IT ops person, SecOps person, an AppSec, but all these folks can still look at the screen. This is the screen which APM, IT ops person, SRE would go to anyways, and the security health related information is surfaced here. And that's the single pane of glass which I was talking about, right? So a way to collaborate as opposed to being siloed, minding their own business. This provides an IT ops person or SRE person to kind of say, hey, you know what? I noticed this security issue. It says a high score for business risk. AppSec, SecOps guy, take a look, right? So it makes it easier for people who believe in security is everybody's business to kind of act on it and contribute to improve the security posture of their organization. All right. So now with that, I'm going to jump into the security tab, which takes us to the CSA dashboard, right? So I'm going to quickly run through just a couple of items. Again, this is getting started. I just wanted to show you some high-level features. So I'm going to skip this applications and I'm going to go to business transactions. And in business transaction, checkout in an e-commerce application is typically something which affects the bottom line, right? So it's an important enough BT, okay? So when I clicked on that, it has a business risk score, and it also tells us, okay, how that is arrived at, okay? And in this case, you see, vulnerabilities with high exploitation risk. Where is this coming from? This is coming from the Kena integration. Threat activity. Where is this piece of information coming from? This is coming from Cisco Talos. Usage of unsafe external API. This is coming from Panoptica's API related insight. Integration with Panoptica provides you this information. Important business transaction. How do we know that? Right? This comes from AppDynamics, right? So that is where you as a user kind of say, hey, this is an important business transaction for me to care enough about it to kind of have a separate name and capture it as a business transaction that automatically has some idea, gives us some idea about the business impact it could have. And as you guys know, impact and likelihood are the two things which goes into any risk measure, right? And then it also finds out that it can access a data store and it's publicly available, accessible, and that is your attack surface input. And using these 6 factors is how the business risk score is calculated to make it easy for you to kind of pick and choose on what to work on. And right at that screen, you have recommendations on what libraries need to be upgraded to get the biggest bang for the buck. These libraries are relevant to this business transaction, which is very important for your business, right? And it gives you right away what you need to do. So let's click on that. And that took us directly to the libraries, right? And which lists all the vulnerabilities which are in that library. All right. And then see, we talked about the CVSS score. We said, yes, it talks about severity, not enough about us to know something about the risk. That is why we have the Kena score. And here you have both Kena score and CVSS score. Until you get more confidence in Kena score, You say, you know what, I've been using CVSS core. Okay, fine, you can use that, right? All right. So now, when we go into these vulnerabilities listed in the library, we are able to go look at the list of vulnerabilities per application, which you can choose. And like, let's say, go here, go back here. All right, so basically what we are seeing here are the SEA functionality, software composition analysis functionality, where the libraries used by your application are listed, right? And to go to the RASP functionality, runtime application self-protection, okay? So here we actually show the issues which actually pose a threat. You know, somebody can exploit your application, and those attacks are listed here. And it shows you specifically in which part of the code, okay, the issue, in this case, remote code execution issue comes into being. You can add policies here. Here I'm actually showing the existing policies. One policy which I want to just have you look at, okay, is a network or socket access policy, where we actually look for the log4j issue, and we can specifically say we want to block that. And this blocking, as opposed to just watching or detecting, right, is the runtime application self-protection functionality. Okay, so again, as I already mentioned, this is meant to be an introduction, right, and not something which goes into each and every feature of CSA, and also the best practices on how would you go about using these features, right? So now I'm going to kind of stop here to give you some time to ask any questions that you may have. The idea behind this webinar was to get you started. You know, you have a license. You know, it's easy to get going with CSA. It is a tool that provides you not just one functionality of a security tool. It provides three different class of security tools functionality, which is a SCA tools functionality, IASP tools functionality, a RASP tools functionality, all in one. And then not just that, it has backend integration with three different tools which provide insight into the security issue, which in turn makes it easy for you to prioritize which is actionable intelligence to secure your system, right? Anyway, I'm going to stop here and see whether there are any questions. All right, so what I'll do in that case is, while you guys think of any questions, I could basically answer a couple of questions which come to my mind based on what I've heard from some of our customers. Okay, so one of that is, let me just, okay. One of that is, somebody says, you know, hey, you know what? We already have a software composition analysis tool. Okay, so now that is already in our build pipeline, right? Farther left in the security software development lifecycle, right? Then why do we need CSA, right? So now, first, the answer to that question is um, taking it from the security principle, one of the security principles, which is called defense in depth. The fact that you have a gate doesn't preclude a need for a door, right? So the fact that you have a moat doesn't mean you don't need a big door to protect the fort, right? So that is a well-known security principle, right? But beyond that, right, you would basically say, hey, you know what, we only have so much budget, right? We need to pick and choose here. We believe in defense in depth. We believe in layered security, right? For those of you who say that, so now CSA, yes, it's meant to be run in production, But again, we want to understand that what it really means is CSA is a runtime security tool. Okay. Now, if you have your running application on staging environment, you can use CSA. If you have it in your test environment, you have it in your dev environment, right? It's just a couple of licenses, right? From that standpoint, it's not about a million users, right? Right? Your dev server, is probably smaller, yeah. And then you actually get your insight about what vulnerabilities exist in your application much farther earlier in your development lifecycle. Now, then, how is it still different than an SCA tool, right? The difference is this: a SCA tool may pick up any and every vulnerability because it is not going against your running application, it's going against a repository. When it goes against a repository, right, it's going to pick old libraries, dead code, and everything, and complain about all those, and all what you have is lots of issues, and you are now lost on what issue do I fix first. And it doesn't provide you a context of business because it doesn't have one, right? It just looks at the libraries in isolation. Whereas in CSA, the vulnerabilities which CSA is reporting is the libraries that actually got loaded, right, when the application is running. So you have proof that that library is loaded, and if that library is vulnerable, yes, your application is susceptible to a security attack, right? This is exactly what you need in the security world, a way to prioritize. And the CSA, being part of the AppDynamics agent, provides you the business context, right? And thereby you're able to attribute the risk to your business and thereby use it to prioritize, right? So anyway, so that's the more important thing. So instead of getting noise, you get actionable intelligence, right? So that's the and again, I'm still talking about one of the functionality of CSA. Here I was talking about the software composition analysis part of it, right? And CSA can do IAST, RASP as well. I'm going to stop here and kind of see whether there is any other question.
Yeah. Oh, Senthil, did you get the one question from Greg? I'm not sure if you addressed it. So he had asked, can you set health rules to alert on certain Kenna scores?
Oh, so yeah, so that is something which I need to check back on.
Okay.
Yeah, so right off the bat, one, I don't believe it is present. Now, I can check that, but again, understanding where Greg is going with that question, right? I would say what is needed is a threshold on the business risk, right? So now see, that's the beauty of this product, CSA, right? See, instead of taking the CVSS score and perhaps having some alert on that, and we know that is not as actionable because it's a severity based score, right? And then you say, hey, Kenna score is something good, right? You said you're using AI, all that, and perhaps even LLM, I don't know what, right? Data science, AI, ML. It should be good. I'll go after that. Yeah, good. Yes, that's good too. It's better than CVSS, right? But what is even better? It's the business risk score, right? Right. So let me just go here, try to share, and yeah. So I'm going to quickly. I know we have 3 more minutes, but we are done. We're just answering questions, and I'm going to make use of this time to kind of get into business transactions. And you see here, yes, there is CVSS score, Kenna score. So if you need to have an alert, and I would have it on this. Why? Other tools will not help you have, well, they may not even have anything like Kenna score. They may only have CVSS score. Here you have Kenna score, but here is the business risk score, which uses CVSS score, well, which is because of the fact that Kenna score uses CVSS as one of these 10 things maybe, right? And then this business risk score incorporates the Kenna score as part of vulnerabilities with high exploitation risk and all that. And this is the score you care about, and this is the key differentiator for CSA which may not even be possible for most applications simply because of the fact these key differentiators are a result of one, CSA being part of AppDynamics, two, CSA being integrated with several Cisco's security suites. Okay. Anyway, so to your question, I would say anything alerts should be against the business risk score, right? From that standpoint, right? Let's see here, alert. All right, and then I'm going to go here. All right, so maybe here, and here you see we can have something on the business risk. Okay. All right, so hopefully that answers the question, Greg, and if not, please DM me after this call. Okay, so if there are any other questions, I think I can take one maybe right now, and then it looks like Greg said yes, he's good with that. Yes, Greg, feel free to contact me. All right, so with that, I'm done with that. Thanks a lot. Again, to sum up, you have a CSA license. CSA is easy to enable. CSA provides a lot of value, and that too easily, right? You have it, it's easy to use, and it secures your business. Why wouldn't you use it?